will be doing the seminar today. This is the introduction to the AR635 AS3X receiver in park flyers. So what we're going to do is they're going to explain a little bit about installing and programming some of the receiver into some of the Park Zone and E-Flight airplanes, and then we'll open it up to questions from you guys. And it can pertain to the receiver or to the aircraft or however you guys want to do it. Amanda Weldy will be doing the seminar today. This is the introduction to the AR635 AS3X receiver in park flyers. So what we're going to do is they're going to explain a little bit about installing and programming some of the receiver into some of the Park Zone and E-Flight airplanes, and then we'll open it up to questions from you guys. And it can pertain to the receiver or to the aircraft or however you guys want.
Exciting product is the 635 AR635 park size AS3X receiver. So that you can go from 0 to 100. And at the same time, you have two big groups. So you have here one group with the 3 axes, and here you have another group also with the 3 axes. These two big groups are controlled by your channel 5. So you can change your gain moving from one or the other with your channel 5. So what that means is you can choose, like, turn it off if you want. You have one set that's 0, and the other set could be 100. So you can, or different values, or you can assign different values to the different axes. So that is a very, I would say that's a very big step forward from what we had before. Because there is nothing better to have the freedom to do what you want to do, right? So you want to experience that. You want to turn it off, you see how effective it is, or on different days you fly in a different way. So that's one of the things. The other important thing with the receiver is that we operate with all the transmitters. It goes from the 4 to our 18, all of them. But in that big group, each of these transmitters has a different percentage that it will allow you for servo travel. So the 4 and 5E are servo travel maximum is 100%. Then you have the DX6 is 125, and then all the rest is 150. So what we did is we took the 100, make one group. We took the 125% and make one big group. So you have the two groups, and these two groups, then you have what we assign the 3D, what we call 3D computer and 3D non-computer radios. So this division is based on the travel of the servo. How is that relative? It's part of the tuning of the receiver. I will not get that deep. So, but I just want to give you, in the big picture, what this receiver can do for you. So we have a 3D flying with a two group of transmitter, and then we have a third group that we call sport. The sport will group all the radios, and it's for sport flying. So the sport flying also, you have your flaps are active, your retract is active, and of course you will have the gains, default gains set up in a way that you can fly the sport mode. So what that means is that we have a receiver that will do all of this. And it's our first receiver doing all of this, and we call it sport. The idea is, going back to the roots of our Park Zone product style, is like, I am at the field, I don't need any other thing than my airplane, my battery, and my transmitter. And with that, I can set up my AS3X. So there is no interface device or anything, external device that will operate this receiver. Everything is done by stick combination, and 3 lights that are on the receiver. So through this, you can do what I just explained. So we are open this receiver to be used on electric airplanes up to 91 size. For now, we say only electric, but we're working on also glow and gas application. Hopefully soon we'll have some news about that. For now, we are rating this receiver. You need to treat this receiver as if you have an AR600. It's pretty much the same way as far RF goes. So my own experience with this, I was very involved, and I was pretty much the guy that pushed this, and of course with the spectrum together, we made this, and I went through all the stages from nothing to now. I crashed many airplanes and learning because it's the whole system. You need to have good servos. You cannot just put there any servo. You need to have a good BEC because your servos are going to be working harder. I don't know if you guys, for example, you take some ultra micro airplane and you can hear how those servos are working because, of course, these airplanes on this receiver and the airplanes are going to be operating. They're bigger, so the airplanes doesn't bounce like the smaller ones. So they are not as active, but still active. So that. When you decide to put this receiver on one of your airplanes, you need to consider, your servos, your BEC, and make sure the number of servos you're putting, when those servos are continuously moving, are not going above of your BEC. Otherwise, you would have problems. So, and I think I explained all the technical part quite a bit and quite good, I think. But I would like to do right here a break and see if you guys have any question of what I say, so we don't get too long. Everybody has clear what I say, or I'm confusing you. I'm not sure. so I just, if anybody has a
I
question.
can't quite read that. Is it 6-channel or 8-channel receiver?
It's a six channel. Another point I want to make a comment right there on the number of channels and the Y harness and why we have a Y harness and why we didn't assign a channel 6 to be also aileron, because we have some of those questions. I just want to tell you one more time. It says a sport receiver is covering all the needs. So if you want flaps, you need that 6 channel. So go ahead.
So with the flaps, let's say on this receiver, what, if anything, does the gain do for that? Does it slow it down? Can you slow down retracts or anything, or what's that do? Anything, or just you can still use it?
The gains are tied to the 3 axis on, so it's not tied to the flaps. But what I mean is, because you can map your receiver. So you have the MEM sensor working on channel for aileron, channel 2, and you could have channel 6 also working, and you can have independent your ailerons, and then you can use spoileron or things like that. But if you do that, then you would not have flaps if you are using a sport mode. So as I said before, this is our first step forward on this, and our idea is to bring to the sport, which is the big group, to learn and understand about this way to fly airplanes, because it's a new way. You will be surprised the things you will be able to do when you start trying this. And, before maybe you were at field like you said 15 miles per hour, depending on your airplane. Just telling you just a number. Your limit was like 15 miles per hour because when you're landing, the airplane's moving all, so you're kind of scared. Maybe now with this, maybe you go 20, 25, and you're still feeling good. So your amount of flying, it becomes you know, you can do more stuff. Same thing with your flying. You know, 3D is one that easy to judge. You know, the guy that is almost hovering, with this become a king. You know, just doing right. Your carriers around the guy that, you know, has a lot of problems to keep it up, and not much work on the rudder, because that's what it makes the difference. You will become a king also. So that's the kind of difference. It's not, the plane will not be doing, or the receiver will not be doing for you anything that will take away from you the fun, or feel like, oh, somebody's doing something for me. No, never. It will be like a little good friend next to you, and give it that small corrections. There's mini correction, I mean, very small controlling for you. You just feel like your airplane is like a bigger, feels like big. I mean, flying this plane feels like I'm flying a 100cc airplane. The way I'm just steady, and how the wind bothers and everything. So that's what it's about. So any other questions?
How do you set the gain?
Okay, the gains are set by stick combination
Yeah, you did say that, I'm sorry.
and 3 lights. Okay, so what is basically what we do is this: you power up, you bind your equipment, you have your equipment operating, then you leave your transmitter on. Is this mode 2?
What's that?
Is it mode 2?
It is.
Okay, that's okay. We'll figure it out. I think mode 1. So, but basically, so you unpower your airplane, your receiver battery, leave this on, and then you advance your throttle to the middle, okay, and then you hold this up, and here in this corner, just like this, power the receiver, and you go into the gain mode. Your 3 flashes will be light, you know, flashing like this. And then by elevator, moving in that direction or either direction, you change the axle you want to adjust. And then you go in that direction, you go to the plus symbols, and then in this direction you go to the negative side. What is positive and negative? You will start hearing sensing direction. Very important. If the sensing direction is wrong, you're in trouble. You can do a really good freestyle for a short time. So sensing direction is when the plane moves in one of the axles, let's say rolls right, the AS3X will sense that and will react in the opposite direction. It will give you left takeoff. So same on the pitch and same on the rudder. So when you adjust the gain, the lights will tell you what direction you're going, etc. But by this you adjust the gain, then you say next axle, just move, elevator, adjust, then rudder, adjust, pin. When you finish, you have 2 groups. Remember I explained that? So channel 5, move the other direction, and then you adjust the other 3. When you finish, throttle down, you're ready to go. If you get lost, what you do, you put it here in half, pull the rudder like this, 3 seconds, and it comes to default, factory default. So you can start over. So that's how basically the gains work. So the choice of your, so if you have a brand new airplane, let's do this. You're flying something now and you say, okay, I have a good plane, like the Carbon Z. Yeah, okay, that's you have one of those, just to say something, and then, okay, I'm going to put this receiver. So the first thing is we can maybe start looking at how to install that receiver. So you keep in mind that it's important how you put that receiver on the airplane. So the position of the receiver needs to be flat, okay? You can face the plugs to the front or the tail of the airplane, no problem. But don't put it like a sideway. That's no good. This is how it reads the receiver. So flat, horizontal. It could be in the belly of the airplane. It could be in the top. It doesn't matter. But don't put it aside. Don't put it like with the main axle of the wing, you know, like this. That's bad. So that's the first thing. Then how you attach to the airplane. All these foam airplanes, best way is servo tape, and then you add on the edge some silicone. So at the end, what you're looking at is for something rigid. What happens if the receiver is loose and move, it will reflect and reflect. Most important, secure that thing well, because if it come off, another good freestyle. If it's just the receiver, it would be like this. You have nothing you can do. So that's important. So in the past, when we didn't fly this type of AS3X, the receiver was okay. If it comes loose, it happens. You know, how many of us had that receiver kind of thing? So now that's the installation. That's the recommendation to do. And servo tape is best way. So if he's in any balsa airplane, still recommending the same. I think it's very important on this is to balance well the propeller. Or anything is turning, you know, propeller, spinner. You can't have a prop shaft like this. Because all the movement, it just affects the way the AS3X sends. So then the first thing you do is you put everything in your transmitter to your flying. You have a computer radio, let's say you have any 7 or 8, something like that. You put normal, no subtrim, no trinkets. That's very important for the system. No subtrim, so everything's 0. Set the servo travel at 125. And now you can start working on the amount of gain you want to start with it. So you start doing all this. And this is a guess, because we have, what I'm saying is a guess. If it's for you, it's a new airplane that we might didn't fly yet, and you are the first experimenter. Today we have 4 airplanes here that she tests some. I have mine here, and we are passing you the initial values, recommended value for those airplanes. And so the amount of gain. So this is what I highly recommend you guys when you go into an unknown airplane is always plan your flying and your gains in a way that with these 2 groups, you have basically one with a very low gain or maybe 0, and the other one with a high gain. Because if you have an airframe and your setup on your airplane, who knows, maybe your clevis has a little bit of play, your prop is unbalanced, some resonance coming from the engine, from the motor, or things like that, will affect the way the airplane will stabilize in the air. So you can start, if you have your gains too high, and you go to, and one more time this, the oscillation is relative to the airspeed. So if you're going fast and your gains are too high and you start in a strong oscillation, it might crash the airplane. It might flutter and just pieces. It could be an extreme case, what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, watch, and I recommend start with low gains. When it comes to time, you say, okay, it's going well. It's moving good. I go wide open. I go into the wind. I go 45 wide open. I move my ailerons, and the airplane doesn't keep doing this. You can come here and do this, and then keep doing this. So it's all good. Now it's time to flip the switch and put in a higher rate. Higher gains. When you do that, again, don't do that full power. Just throttle back, motion, throttle back. And cruise, change the gain and see how it performs. And then again, throttle up, and that's how you will learn. So over time, you will know this airplane I can use this much gain. Now the thing is this: why is so important the gain? Well, higher your gain goes, more AS3X. That equals, to me, more fun. You can do more stuff with your airplane. So that's why it's important always. The idea is you have always to be with your mindset to tune your airplane and your gains to the highest possible. So that's pretty much the, go ahead.
My question, if you're saying you have to mount it rigidly to the plane, in other words, you don't want it to be shock mounted. If you can shock mount it like with absorbethane or something, so it's totally rigid and won't move around, but it's shock mounted from the plane,
What?
is that a bad thing? It should be.
No, I'm not saying no. What I'm saying is it takes a little experimentation. Sometimes some airframes will be more friendly to a little bit, like you say. Some others is as rigid as possible, and there is many factors that will affect. Believe me, when you go to the edge of the gain, and this is part of the fun that we modelers like to play and experiment, with these things. It's another new thing for us to play. Is even the weather can affect. When you are on the edge of your gain, maybe one day your airplane is absolutely smooth and any speed and anything, but maybe you go the next day and it's a bumpy day, and maybe you start seeing some oscillations. So over time, you will learn what's the gain for you. It's just a matter of experimenting. So when you're setting up your gains, the first thing you need to look is for the sensing. So if you have the plane, how you check? So you put your transmitter there, and then you have to power up like 25% so the AS3X get active. So that's important. So when it's active, what you do, handle your plane move like this, and look your aileron. So if I'm doing this, aileron, this aileron should go up, right? So I'm going left. This, left. Then you move it like this. And the staff should be doing up. Because I'm not down. And same with the rudder. So check, and check. That. And then flip the switch, go to the other set of gains, and do the same test. That's important. So once you're there, you know the directions and everything, then proceed, adjust the gains you want. And after that, what I suggest you do is check the direction of your servos. Check the direction of the servos. Remember this, servo direction is not relative to sensing. Very important, because they might get confusing. You do all this sensing. When you're done, then you check your control surfaces. Put it in whatever direction you need to go, and then ready to go. Take off. So, any other question, guys? Amanda, you want to say something about? I don't want to be the only one.
Is this a system appropriate for, say, the 2-meter radian?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It will stabilize the radian.
Yes. Sure will. The first guys that actually did that, based on logistics, the Visionaire and the AR635 shipped about a week or so earlier over in Europe than they did here. And that was one of the first questions that we got was from our German office. The first thing they called us and said was, hey, is this okay? Because we've got guys that want to use the AS3X for aerotow. So they can turn the gain on when they're being towed, and then once the tow plane releases, turn the gain off. And they're having very good success with it. So I'm just going to turn this on real quick. As PK mentioned, there's a series of lights. I'm not going to go through all of the programming because he did a really good job with that. But I'm just going to plug this in real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about with what he's talking about with the lights. So as it goes through, these 3 lights will turn on.
and it'll calibrate as well. There it goes. So those are the 3 lights that he's speaking of, and they will flash in a particular pattern as you're going through and telling it what type of transmitter you're using, and as you cycle through the axes. A couple of the most common questions that we've gotten in the last couple weeks since this has shipped is folks who are setting this up, and as he mentioned, they've already got a really good airplane. They want to put it in the airplane. I can't stress enough, keep that model memory, but go to a blank model memory when you set up the AR635. That's because you may think that you may have deleted a mix or something like that, and you really didn't, and it affects your sensing direction, it affects all sorts of stuff. It can make it really difficult for you to program the receiver and program the gains. So real quick with this one, the T-28 we set up, we just decided, hey, let's pick a really popular airplane, really good flying airplane, and see what it does. So the way we have this one set up, I've got it set up right now on the DX-18. As he mentioned, the AR635 is mounted level in the airplane. Pins are pointing toward the tail. It's solid. It's not going anywhere. So we've got the Y harness that comes pre-installed in the airplane. Plug it into ailerons. Everything else hooks up as normal, and it flies pretty awesome. We've got all the gains on this one cranked up to 100%, both high and low rate. Also, as he mentioned, don't forget to check both gain positions on the gear channel. Bad things will happen if you have it set up correctly in one direction and you flip the gear switch and you find that the elevator gain is set backwards. Particularly if, as he mentioned,
You understand that, or if you claim that the sensing is wrong, if it's pitching down, and the receiver is sensing in the wrong direction, it will pitch you more down, and there is no way you can get up.
Yeah.
And then that's another good freestyle.
Or same rod. I made that mistake.
Yep. We actually made that mistake on that airplane on Monday, and thankfully I was not flying it, and one of our really good pilots was flying it and was not going very fast, and thankfully he did not have the gain turned up real high. I think he had it at about 20 or 30% and flipped the gear switch, brought the gear up, and it went into the other gain setting, and he said, man, this thing's flying really weird. Brought it down, checked it, and sure enough the elevator was backwards.
This is not, it's nothing to scare, and it's not the idea here to say scare. It's just, it's like, watch this, it's like, imagine the guys in the 70s or on the 80s, I was one of them. When we went from nothing on the transmitter, maybe a dual rate, and then you could reverse the servos. That was the new thing. We can reverse the servo. Many of us crashed because of that. So this is another step. So we have the servos. Now there is one more to check the direction. That's all about it what we're talking right now. Yes. Just make sure. So to try to bring your experience the most fun as possible. So we don't have too many phone calls.
Yeah, it's a very, the T-28 is probably one of the easiest installations. If you have the original Park Zone Corsair, if you have the Stinson, any of those, they're all going to set up very similar. Pretty easy, it only takes a few minutes to do it and then go through the programming. So on the Corsair, this is going to be a little bit harder to see, I'm not sure. I'm probably not going to be able to
Maybe
even
we
see
can
it.
pass it around.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, it's going to be hard. But on the Corsair, as you notice, the guys down here in the front, you can't see the receiver. That's because, as you mentioned, you can actually mount it in the belly of the airplane. So what we did with this one is pull the wing off. It's mounted up underneath here with a fine plug extension coming from the underside. Again, it's mounted level, it's mounted solid, it's not going to go anywhere.
Now we take the opportunity to promote my design. Not remove anything. So that maybe works for you, and get this one.
This hooked up so that you can see these corrections if you actually move it, like
Yeah.
suggested. You can do that?
Yeah, these are all three of these are hooked up and set up, so you guys can check them out afterwards or whatever. We'll pass them around right now, but then you can come up here and check them out.
I mean, can you take the airplane powered up, the throttle down, and, you know, tilt it hard and see a counter correction?
No need to prop running anything, just power the radius.
Power it up, but
Yeah.
can you hold it in your hand and see it counter correct?
Yeah, that's what it was, we can,
That one would
is
probably
it
be the
binds
best.
or not?
I didn't see it.
The T20, the
Yeah, the
T28
T28
both
is.
down.
Okay.
Okay,
that one
so
we
we can show you how,
I know the
Maybe
person.
not.
want to do that, right, Quique?
Huh?
Want to do that to test it, make sure.
right, that's the way you do it, you move it like I have a move. That's how you do it.
I mean, we'll look at the Corsair and then. But if you want to play around with it afterwards and come and see it.
So Quique, in the testing process, you say it's almost like range checking. Once you've done this, before you fly, check your low setting, your high setting.
Yeah, once you check, once you're done with the games, you don't have to check anymore. You know, you're done. You're done. But if one day you say, okay, I want to adjust the game, well, over time you will know exactly what you're doing. The lights are very clear. You know, this is like when you read the manual, you will see the lights that give you the what direction you're sensing, and then the final check is the one you move the airplane and you see. So once you are set with that, then you don't need to do that check anymore.
Is there gonna be one with another channel or so, like for the beach bonanza, where you need one for the nose gear, or need an extra channel for the nose gear? I know that wouldn't be on the stabilization, but I mean, you need the extra channel.
Well,
You wouldn't get to
the
this.
nose here, you know, you can run it from the rudder, put a wide harness.
Yeah, this way you get to adjust it if you got it separately, right? You get to adjust how.
Right. It's the limitation of the number of channels.
Right, right.
We have.
Right.
Yeah, it's a 6-channel. You have to power a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Oh, no. So, this is what you do. So you look, see? If I move it like this, you can see the rudder.
So does it go in the opposite direction of motion or the same direction?
Right, opposite. It's like you're correcting. So if your airplane moves like this, what are you doing? Left, right? You want right.
Yeah, very good.
So, and you need to, you know, focus and you can see. Do several times.
You set up the Corsair and the Trojan then for 100%,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
What's the default? Is that,
On the
I mean, on the whole thing, no matter, is it the same no matter what?
no,
we're
in
doing?
this each like a sport mode, which you would use for that airplane.
So is that 100
It's at
then?
70.
70.
Everything is 70. That's
So
the
somebody
default.
who doesn't, I mean, I can see a lot of new folks wanting to get in on this receiver, but honestly, it does sound like you got to be on your game to set it up right, you know, and check everything. So is it real easy to just like go with defaults then? And
Right.
you still have to check the direction,
You know, exactly.
right?
Exactly.
But that's it.
That's what I would recommend you. You know, if you had your new airplane, that would be one of the good things to do. The only thing, as I said before, just when you test it, don't go wide open from takeoff.
So 70 is a good place to start on like the Horwitz series.
I
right?
cannot say it's the perfect. It's okay. Just when you take off, don't go too fast.
But ultimately, you want to get as much gain in it as you
Absolutely.
can to get the most out of this.
Like the T28 is 100. It works
That's
at
at
100.
100.
And
And
here
this
it
one's
works
at
at
100.
100.
Could you notice much of a difference at the default setting versus just regular stock, 600X?
On the Corsair, in certain conditions, yes. Every once in a while on the Corsair, just because of the shape of the airframe, you'll get, in particular conditions, you'll just get a real slight tail wag and separate orientations. That takes care of that. That is pretty much gone. With the, as far as I mentioned, starting with a blank model memory, getting rid of your mixes. The reason I mentioned that is because a lot of guys, the T28 for the guys that have maybe done this before, you'll find the T28 is really good as is in knife edge flight, but some guys will go ahead and just put a little bit of knife edge mix in there. It almost eliminates that knife edge mix that you need. So that's why we recommend just start from a clean slate and then build it as you need to build, because you'll probably find that there's things that you had programmed in before that now you don't need it.
I tell you, other things that you would see on the sport airplanes, where you experience the most difference is when you slow down. That's when you see most. You know, your landings, your takeoff, your flying slow and turning. Some very light wind loading airplanes, it will be no kind of any alert when the stall is coming. You feel nothing. The next thing you see is the nose coming down. The airplane is so stable. So it becomes just better all the way around. When you increase the speed and you get to do like rolls, point rolls, or things like that, just pop where exactly you want. You do a snap, it's like a bang, you know? Or you do a stall turn, it's like, it doesn't do any of that. So that's what you mainly feel. So you have a question, sir?
Can you talk about where you're going to take the product in this release? Any ideas?
What do you say?
As far as what's coming,
Yeah.
Like the,
it's hard telling.
A lot of exciting things is coming.
Yeah, we can't talk specifically to it.
You know, it's very simple. We really believe on this. So I'm saying a lot here. I think it's the future. I'm an old guy on this. I'm not old guy, I mean old modeler. That sounds better because I'm flying from 9 years old. So what is it? 38 years or something like that flying more airplanes. So I went through all the stages, and in the past, I used to compete what was called, maybe most of you know, maybe not, the TOC, Tournament of Champions. The Tournament of Champions was always a driver for new things, and they have, by then, we're talking in the 90s, rules where gyros were allowed to use on contests, and several pilots use gyros to fly. They were cool. So all this was there. It did a cycle. Then we saw in the helicopters, right? So you watch, for example, helicopters. Do you think you will see what we see today with the helicopters? What these guys are doing, amazing stuff, without that stabilization? So you just think the same way about the airplane, the fixed ones. It's going to the next level. So to answer your question is, we're very excited and we really believe on this. It's all about much better flying experience. Yes, sir?
Gas and blow applications as well?
We are working on the final test for blow and gas. Hopefully we have some news sometime soon, hopefully. We're working on that. For now, we call electric up to 91 sites. And watch out, as I say, watch out your BEC, your servos. You know, guys, what I found, we do a lot of lab tests and instrument and check everything, but at the end of the day, the way we found is, okay, you power up everything, and then just wiggle your sticks everywhere. You know, a few seconds, like this. All the surface moving. You don't see any shut down, any light work. That thing is, it's okay. That's one of the tests we can do at the field, but what I recommend you is keep high on your BEC capacity, the number of servos you put it on, because the AS3X is very active. All servos are working at the same time. Not like before. Before you were like, turn, servo move, you know, up. Now it's all four of them working. So that's important. Yes, sir?
Thrust engineering, will that be a factor of the stabilization of the thrust?
Yeah, in this case, this receiver, you could use to apply that to the vector if you want. You know, you can have the two axles, and also so your nozzle will be pitched and yaw, and then you leave the ailerons for the third axle. So of course it will help you. Absolutely.
You have to pay attention to servo wear, especially if you like to fly in the wind and you know the servos are being used a lot more than you normally would use servos. Do you have to check them at the end of the season, replace them, or look for something, or what?
I think overall after use, and I'm not seeing a drastic change in the life of your servos, but you might start experiencing like your gains. If you're running, I'm flying my T28 at 100% all the time, and one day you start notice that it doesn't want to take the 100, and you start backing up the gain. So that could be a sign of your servo, could be a sign of your hinges, could be a sign of your clevis, could be a sign of maybe the control horn is loose, or your propeller got a dent and it's vibrating. That is the first thing that we'll do. Check your prop balance, or got dirt, like at the summertime, got bugs and get really, things like that kind of affect the gain. And guys, keep in mind, I kind of, sometimes when I talk, I still thinking about competition, so I'm kind of really, very narrow on detail. So it doesn't mean that you have to be cleaning the prop and things like that. Just understanding in the big picture is, if you see the gains you still need to back up your gain. Take a look what is going on, But more AS3X, more experience, more fun experience.
One last question. Where is the product engineered? Is it here, Asia, Europe?
Here.
We do here.
Here in Champaign.
Yeah.
Horizon.
I read sometimes, and I'm not very active in the forums, but sometimes I read, and I appreciate your questions because, I can talk about my products. Like this plane here, it's everything. It's everything. It's the servo, the receiver, the ESC, everything involved, and we have a big team. Because I'm not the guy that will make the ES. The guy will be the one that will be testing and giving ideas how to do it. There will be an engineer. There will be all kind of support to design all the products over here. That's what we do every day.
Yes, sir.
I have a question on the Corsair
Okay.
and also on your receiver. If you have it mounted up underneath the fuselage, do you need to see the lights to adjust the gains, or?
Yeah, it will be better. Once you start using it, you can, the stick I explained before, here is.
Yeah. 10% of the time.
Well, I was just
So
wondering how you set it up if you couldn't
every
see the
time-
lights underneath.
Every time you move like this, it's 10%. So we divide it in 10.
Yeah, so we
So
started.
if you are 0 and you go 10, it's 10 in positive way, and then 10 in the other direction. So actually, if you want a little bit more gain, maybe you don't need to look at the light, because you know that if you touch it one time, go 10% higher.
Okay.
But at the beginning, you will need the light.
Yeah. Yeah. In the case of this one, what we did, yeah, we had it installed, knew we were at 70%, and then knew that, yeah, every time we move the stick, it's going to move at 10%. So we would move it, check it, make sure that we were moving in the right direction, make sure it actually moved more, and knew that we were going in the right way, and then just kept bumping it up. We'd bump it 10 or 20%, take it up, fly it. We were hoping, our end goal was, as he mentioned, to get the gain as high as possible. So our goal was to get it to 100%. But we started at the default at 70, took it really easy on the airplane, and then just gradually worked our way up. And,
So does that make a big difference on the Corsair flying?
it does take a little bit of that tail wag. It gets rid of that. The big thing is, as you mentioned, with the gain. So as you bring the gear up and down, with gear down, we've got the gain cranked all the way up, and that's where you really see it, is where you're coming in on final, you're slowing down on final, gears down, flaps down.
That's a very smart way to use the gain, So with the same switch, you put your gear down and you have the highest gain you want. So take off like a crosswind, take off landing, gear down. You're flying also slow, so your gains could be to the roof. And then as soon as you take off, flip it, gear up, gains in a different setup for high speed. The other thing, just as an experience, you will experience this. Your gain is also associated to the exponential, right? So more AS3X, it gets more stable and also feels like it doesn't want to leave the position where it is. So that's how you will work. You will find that with over time, your exponential numbers will change. So in the manual, we have like a starting point for that, and then every single airplane will be a little bit different.
So you need less expo.
Yes.
With this.
Absolutely.
Would you recommend starting at 0 then?
I would start 0, probably 0, and you will see the highest maybe 20. You will be in that range. Some guys, sometimes you will find some guys want to go the other way. Maybe minus, -5 or something like that. But in general, 0 is a very good start.
So if you've got more expo on it, it feels more like
It just feels like a low expo. It's like you would say, this is too much expo. That's all.
Mushy.
That's all you feel.
Yeah.
kind of mushy.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there a way to disable the AS3X?
Yes. Yep.
In
All you do is you
Flight,
take.
get the trouble and.
Right. You just reduce the gain to 0. You will see in one of the positions you choose, channel 5, you set in one position, and you will drive all the gains until you will see actually all the lights off.
Yep.
All off. And you're flying, and then you can experiment it too.
Like the receiver comes loose things.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or your very brand new airplane, and you're not sure about the gains, you can have it off.
Is the gyro electronic or mechanical?
You have another question?
Yeah, so,
Don't worry. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're adjusting the gains while you're flying, are you changing control surfaces?
You can't adjust it while you're flying the gain. You can turn it off and on while you're flying based on the position of the gear
Well, you're
switch.
talking about the Corsair being 100 for the landing gear.
Right.
So that's just an on and off. I mean, is that what you're saying?
With the Corsair, we've actually got the gains on all 3 axes set at 100% with both the gear up and the gear down.
You just see the difference once.
Yeah.
You really see the big difference
When you get to the lower airspeed, when
But-
you're flying the
But
third
it's
gear.
still set on both of them.
But I think what you're saying is, if you want to experience on and off position in flight, you can do that with the channel 5. You just adjust the gains off all the way down. Lights will be off in one position. And then the other position, you set the gains you want. And then in flight, you can try on off, basically the AS3X.
So you can activate it with like dual rates.
Same thing.
Assign it that way.
Yeah. But always the channel 5 is the one that controls that. Now, one thing, and this is important, hopefully some of you go and get the receiver and try it. One of the parts that's important is when you decide what airplane you're going to fly, make sure you're flying a 3D airplane with a 3D setup. And you're flying a sport airplane, fly with the sport mode, okay? Why is that? Very, very simple to check and to understand, I think. When you fly 3D, you need a lot of travel, especially the elevator is where you will see most. You want to see 45 or 50 or 60 degrees each direction. But when you fly at a high speed, you cannot fly a 3D airplane with that amount. You need to reduce. So normally a 3D airplane would be like a 20%. So the receiver has built in at different rates already. So what happens is, if you are in a 3D mode, computer or non-computer radio, and you're putting up your elevator full and you move the switch to channel 5, you will see also your rate changing. Nothing is moving. So if you are in 3D mode and you're trying to fly a T-28, when you move the switch, you will find that your elevator in one position will travel normal, but in the other position barely will move. And you say, I can't fly the airplane like that because you don't have enough trouble. It's because you are in the 3D setup. So that's important. It's really defined clearly, what kind of airplane you are flying. So that's why these groups. Now you remember.
Like my RCL copters have uses a trainer switch as a fail-safe. Could you set it up for any of the switches on the transmitters that to get to the AS3X?
It's all about channel 5. It's just the channel 5. Yes, the switch of channel 5 is the one that controls basically your AS3X.
So in the 3D or the 3D transmitter modes, you've got channels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and your channel 5 is reserved for your gain and your dual rate. In the sport mode, you've got access to all 6 channels, but that retract, the gear switch, if you're running retract, it's still operating your retracts and it's changing your gain values.
Will this work in a striker?
It will not.
No, will not, because the elevons.
It's not. Yeah, it's not.
No flying wings.
Gotta have rudder elevator.
Yep.
The elevons. Think on the elevon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think the elevon needs to do a very, very different path.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can still set up dual rates and use this receiver though, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Think on the dual rate. Your dual rate will be like a sub rate. A sub rate of what you have. You can be with a channel 5 in any position, and then your dual rate, it will be a rate of the position you are with that channel 5 switch. So, for example, you are 100%, okay, in one position at your dual rate, and the other one you are in 70. So, when you flip the 70 on your dual rate, it will be 70% of the rate you have on any of the 2 modes. So, if you're flying 3D mode, where your elevator is only 20%, you will be 70% of that 20%. And in the other mode, you will be 70% of the 100. That's how it works. So, what I think is, once you are tuned, you will find that most of the time, you will be just on channel 5. You will not be much on. It will be just maybe some maneuver you find, okay, I need this extra elevator here to do this, but in general, you will enjoy that. So, in case of 3D airplanes, like the Visionary here, when you fly 3D, that's actually where you want the most AS3Xs possible. So like Visionary set up from factory, we have it like 3/4 throttle. It's absolutely smooth. But if you're full throttle, maybe in a windy day or something, you will start seeing a little bit of oscillation. I did that on purpose. The idea is you fly in 3D, you're in high rate. So if you're in high rate, you don't need to fly that fast. So that way you can fly your gains higher. So you will find most of the time when you slow down and you are running with the high gains and the highest as possible. If you increase power, and this is your decision because you can adjust it. I'm just talking about my personal way to see it. If I see full power in 3D mode, I see a little oscillation, I don't care much because I have a lot of gain for when I need, the high rates. When I need the low rate, I have the other setting of gains. So the default for this airplane, I think, is in that. If you look at that sheet, you will see that. Look at the difference between the general, what we call general fly and 3D. The gains are very distant. That's a typical 3D airplane there. But if you look the the T28 or the Corsair in both modes are the same. And that's very relative to what I said before about aerobatics you do, the control surfaces. See, this is a small aileron, look at this aileron, all that has, it's all relative. So again, the two modes and all the ability the receiver has to adjust in the different axles, it's all flexibility for you to use, to experiment. You might find best way for these guys, different than this. The important here is all that flexibility. What will make you have a lot of fun, I tell you. It is a new thing, and as I say, maybe we can close up. I just would like to close up, kind of making a thought. Some people think that you're not a good pilot if you fly with AS3X. I can say that very loud, that's wrong. Because what the AS3X is doing is raising the bar. At the end of the day, what we all want with this hobby is to have fun and to see our airplanes or what we do to shine, to do the best. Now, somebody will say, well, but that unit is doing for you. Well, do you think for that reason we should not use dual rate, don't use Fronix or whatever? This is part of the evolution. If somebody don't want to take that evolution, I think we get isolated over the time. Because this is the future, this is where we're going, and this is the beginning of something that will take all our model airplanes to fly in a higher level, and all of us, we're going to have a lot more fun. So thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you, some of you in the field, and we can talk. And so you're welcome to come here if you want to have any other question and look at the problem.
Yeah, if you want to come and look up at the airplanes, that's fine. We also have some Spectrum catalogs if you would like a full-line catalog of all the Spectrum stuff. And then I do have some Spectrum flashlights. I don't think I have enough for everybody, so if you already have one, please refrain from grabbing another one. But we have some stuff up here, so if you'd like to grab it while you come up and look, feel free, or if you want to just ask more questions.